Hey everyone, welcome back to the Steve's View. Today, we're diving into a hot and controversial topic, Trump's tariffs and his tough stance on U.S. allies. Is he alienating the world, or is he finally calling out the freeloaders? Stick around, because we're breaking down the truth behind the headlines. Let's get this straight. Donald Trump's approach to international trade is bold, confrontational, and depending on who you ask, either genius or reckless. When he slaps tariffs not just on rivals like China, but also on longtime allies like Canada, Japan, and the European Union, it raises eyebrows. Critics call it chaotic, short-sighted, and even self-defeating. But his defenders? They say he's finally calling the bluff of countries who talk the talk of partnership while benefiting disproportionately from U.S. military protection and open markets. Trump's logic? Allies should act like allies. Let's talk about what we even mean by ally. Sure, countries like Germany, France, South Korea, and Japan have long-standing military ties with the U.S. But those relationships were born in a very different world, the Cold War world. Back then, we had a clear-cut enemy, the Soviet Union, and countries like Japan and West Germany were on the front lines of that ideological battle. But fast forward to today, the Cold War is over and a new strategic rival has emerged, China. That shift forces us to ask, are our Cold War allies still acting in America's best interest? Let's take France, for example. When the U.S. had no diplomatic relations with China in the early 1970s, France was one of the first Western nations to establish ties with Beijing. That move eventually helped China gain UN recognition, kicking out Taiwan in the process, something that still has major geopolitical consequences. Then there's Germany, which has continued to purchase Russian energy even after the invasion of Ukraine, funneling billions of dollars into Putin's war machine, while also relying on American taxpayers to fund NATO's defense efforts. So the real question is, if our friends are paying our enemies, are they really our friends? For decades, the U.S. has essentially subsidized the security of its allies. We have troops stationed across Europe and East Asia. We offer nuclear protection to countries that don't have it. And guess what? Those same countries often turn around and use their savings to fund generous social programs at home. Meanwhile, American taxpayers are told we can't afford universal health care. It's no surprise Trump and his supporters ask, why are we paying to protect countries richer than us? NATO countries, for example, are supposed to spend 2% of their GDP on defense, yet most of them consistently fall short, expecting the U.S. to fill the gap. That's why Trump's approach isn't just about economics, it's about fairness. If you're benefiting from the U.S. security umbrella but undermining us economically or politically, don't be shocked when we push back. Now, let's be fair, there's a strong case against Trump's aggressive tariff policy. First, tariffs are a tax on imports, and guess who pays them? American consumers. When Trump levies a 25% tariff on European steel or Canadian aluminum, those costs often get passed down to American manufacturers and ultimately to the end customer. Second, punishing allies may weaken diplomatic ties when we need them most. Take the war in Ukraine. Yes, countries like Germany have acted selfishly in the past, but they've also committed to cutting dependence on Russian gas and increasing defense spending. Finally, some argue that Trump's go-it-alone policy risks pushing allies closer to China or Russia, just to escape the pressure. It's a valid concern, but others counter that tough love is exactly what's needed to break old habits and force a realignment. Trump recently imposed a 50% tariff on Brazil, citing concerns over political persecution of former President Bolsonaro. Critics say this is blatant interference in Brazil's internal politics, while Trump loyalists argue it's about drawing a line in the sand. Brazil's current leadership under President Lula has moved closer to China, publicly aligning with the BRICS initiative, which seeks to challenge U.S. dominance in global finance and geopolitics. So Trump's position is clear. If you walk with China, don't expect America to treat you like a neutral player. It may not be diplomacy in the traditional sense, but it's an unmistakable message. What we're seeing is more than just tariffs. It's a stress test of the post-World War II alliance system. That system assumed countries like Germany, Japan, and France would align with the U.S. not just militarily, but also economically and politically. But the rise of China, the energy dependence on Russia, and economic self-interest have fractured that alignment. We now see countries trying to play both sides, cozying up to China for trade, while leaning on the U.S. for defense. Trump's tariffs challenge that behavior head-on. His message, you can't have it both ways. Amid all this, countries like Indonesia and Vietnam are starting to emerge as new strategic partners for the U.S. Take Indonesia, for example. Its decision to move the capital from Jakarta to a remote location closer to the South China Sea is being read by some as a defensive maneuver against Chinese maritime ambitions. Indonesia's navy is increasing its presence near critical waterways. Quietly but decisively, it's stepping into a larger regional role, one that may benefit from U.S. support. These moves matter. They show that loyalty is shifting, and that new alliances may replace the old. So, is Trump right to challenge traditional alliances? Is it time to rethink what makes a country a true ally? The answer isn't black and white. Yes, his tactics are blunt. Yes, tariffs can hurt American consumers. And yes, alienating longtime partners can carry real risks. But the fundamental question he's raising, who really has America's back, deserves to be asked. Because in a world where China's influence is growing and economic competition is global and brutal, the U.S. can't afford fake friends. If that means redefining what an ally looks like in 2025 and beyond, then maybe it's time we had that uncomfortable conversation. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Trump's approach is refreshing realism or dangerous isolationism? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives like this. Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.